Welcome back, everybody. This is Chad and Eric here with Iraq Veteran 8888. Today we've got another Gun Gripe episode for you. All right, we're going to be getting into the idea. I know this is going to be hard for some of you to believe, but could a Democrat senator stand in the way of you and the Second Amendment? Literally, with this filibuster that's on hand, potential vote to get rid of the filibuster in the Senate, Joe Manchin very well could be the breaking stone or straw on the camel's back, per se. So we're going to get into this, and it might be a worthy talking point. I would like to thank our friends at Sonoran Desert Institute. They've got some wonderful gunsmithing programs, a really great group of people, and I appreciate them supporting Gun Gripes. If you've got that unused GI Bill, put that thing to work for you. They accept, types of student aid like that. If you are looking to have a career in the firearms technology realm and you want to increase your scope of knowledge, they're a great online source to look into. Check them out. All right, so Joe Manchin. This is one of those kind of odd situations where you've got a Democrat senator in West Virginia who has a relatively pro-gun background and has gotten, good ratings from the NRA in the past. So we have to assume, or at least hope, that he's going to hold true to the Constitution and hold true to his pro-gun past. So I guess this is really interesting to think about. Right now Schumer is definitely wanting to do away with the filibuster. We'll get into this a little more, but it's really random. We're on such a slippery slope with this whole situation that we're literally just on the edge, like looking over the edge of the cliff right now when it comes to our rights, because if they can remove this filibuster, the idea is with a simple majority vote, which they certainly will have with removing the filibuster, the idea is that they can pass any bill they want readily and easily, right? And we know that if it goes to Biden's desk, he's going to sign it if it's an anti-gun bill. But not only that, there's deeper connotations too. They've already expressed interest in wanting to pack the Supreme Court. This makes it much easier for them to pack the Supreme Court. So they know in order for this to work in their favor, they've got to establish an easier system to push things through quicker, more efficiently, and everything. Biden has already waved the wand of executive fiat, 19 times already just in the last week. The most executive orders that have been signed by a president in the first day or even week of their presidency, probably in a very long time. I think Bush didn't sign any executive orders his first day or week of being president. I think Trump signed maybe one or something like that. Bill Clinton signed one, but 19. So it's clear that even though there's this perceived notion, right, that they have control of they do have control of the Senate, the House, and the presidency. All right, why would they need to wave that wand of executive fiat so readily if they knew that anything could get passed legitimately through the Congress?
Well, the big thing with the executive orders that have been passed recently, we're rolling back a lot of the orders that Trump put into place. And one of the executive orders killed jobs on both sides of the border, between us and Canada, with the Keystone Pipeline being canceled. So, literally on day one, Joe Biden is killing jobs in the U.S. So we'll see what happens from there, but I'm sure there's going to be a lot more that's going to get killed.
2 million Texans could lose their job. And when you talk about revenue in Texas, just from the oil industry alone, over $500 million in annual revenue would be affected by this executive order.
You sure it's not more than that? It might
be.
That sounds low.
Well, that's what I saw. It was like 485 million or somewhere. It's a lot of money.
But this is only a sign of times to come, because the thing with these executive orders, literally with a stroke of a pen, jobs can be killed in an industry. What happens when fracking is banned by executive fiat or whatever? Fracking is a method of extracting oil from basically under the ground, from rocks and such, in order to gain our energy independence as a country. And we were on that path, but the Democrats are beholden to the environmentalists, and they don't like oil. So they like us being dependent on places like Saudi Arabia. So who can control the prices of oil that you put in your gas tank from, half a world away?
Well, not to mention all the bankers that run the trains and all that stuff too. So there's a lot of that goes into it. Anyway, I digress.
But it's insane how much he's done on the first day. But just to give you some background on the filibuster, the filibuster is a method of drawing out debates and discussions in the Senate, okay, to the point where they can invoke what's called cloture. When a senator invokes cloture, to my knowledge, what happens is they have to have 60 votes in order to move that bill forward in the Senate for an official vote to move it either to the president, his desk if it's already passed the House, or move it to the House for further deliberation, voting, and then possibly passing it to the president. We saw back in the Obama years, okay, we had full Democratic control of the Senate and the House and the presidency, right? And no gun control got through then, okay? And then midterm elections came up, they lost the House, okay? And the Senate, we had control of the ship, okay? Republicans, conservatives had control of the ship for a couple of years under Trump, but nothing got done. We're always fighting to, keep our rights from being taken away further, but we're never gaining any ground back. So our gun rights have just been further eroded throughout the years. I mean, we get a tiny little piece back on state levels, but we have never gotten anything back on a federal level in a long, long time. And it's not looking like that's going to happen anytime soon. We've had some pro-gun bills that have gotten, introduced in the House, okay, pre-filed in the House. We discussed in a previous gun gripe. But are these things really going to, even come up on the floor for a vote? Likely not. That's what we want to see with these anti-gun bills that are coming down the Senate and the House's pipelines. We don't even want to see them get out of committee. But if they do get out of committee, there's a good chance that there are some moderate Democrats that are going to vote against any sort of grievous anti-gun legislation that does come down the pipeline. But Eric mentioned Schumer wants to get rid of the filibuster. He wants to get rid of what's called Rule 22. But, okay, this is what I'm reading right here. In order to get rid of Rule 22, it would require a vote of 2/3 of the Senate in order to revoke that rule, which allows the filibuster process, which allows cloture to be called, which allows that 60-vote margin to have to be met. So that seems like a hard hill to climb in order to get to that point. So I'd like to say that maybe we're pretty safe, but no one should rest on their laurels when it comes to contacting their senators, especially Joe Manchin. He would be a man to contact, via phone, via email, and show your solidarity with the Second Amendment and express your concern with anti-gun legislation and just speak your mind, to the man. And he's literally like the one senator that could stand between us and gun control when it comes down to things.
I think that there's certainly a few things to consider in the giant scheme of things. One is that, Schumer is just engaging in political theater, which the Democrats have notoriously and famously been known to readily wield the sword of political theater in many, many cases, right? We look at them, walking the impeachment articles over to the Senate to look at, right? So this whole, puff and Ponson circumstance and everything, like they always have to blow everything out of proportion and make a big deal out of things, right? And whether or not, no matter what you think about Trump, it's like they want to talk about unity and about healing the country and bringing people back together, but yet they want to waste taxpayers' money and time, right, to go after these impeachment articles for someone who's not even the president anymore, just out of spite, just to send a message to you, America, just average Americans, that a commoner is not welcome in these halls. That's the message they want to send. They don't want a regular person who's a political outsider in their little realm. They don't want the waters being muddied. They don't want the snakes getting pushed out of the grass. They want their little environment that they exist in and that exists to further their goals and a hierarchy of control to remain in place. And they don't want people to be tempted to try to be a part of it and change the system from the inside. And I strongly believe that more so than any other reason, no matter what you think about President Trump, no matter what your beliefs are of President Biden, it doesn't matter, right? The big scheme of the thing is they want to send a message that political outsiders are not welcome in these halls.
Mm-hmm. If that's not an elitist attitude about it, I don't know what is. I mean, some of these senators and some of these representatives have been literally there in those positions for their entire professional lives. I mean, you look at Feinstein. I mean, I think she's a senator out of California. I think she's been in the Senate since the late 70s. And that woman is like 87 years old now. And there's talk that she is starting to cognitively decline. I mean, there are aides that have come out and said that she doesn't even remember what was said to her 5 minutes ago, and she brings up the same questions again in committees and stuff that she's chaired on, or she's a part of, and that's just insane. I mean, by the time her term is up now, she'll be 93 years old, I guess. I mean, I don't know if she got voted in. I can't remember if she did or not, but she'll be past 90.
I would like to mention something in this particular video that might be slightly relevant to this conversation. Senator Ted Cruz out of Texas, I would like to mention something that Ted Cruz has put forth as a piece of legislation. All right. Senator Cruz has put forth, you may have to Google that. Google that, please. Google that.
Google.
So Senator Cruz has put forth legislation for term limits. So
good.
Yeah. So shout out to Ted Cruz. Good on you, pal. I appreciate that. That's forward-thinking stuff, right? You're talking about an entire system where people can vote in their own raises. You know what I mean? They can make all of these rules that don't apply to them, right? And then there's no accountability. There's no term limits. Someone can just keep getting voted in over and over and over again and become a career politician. So that's the issue with this whole thing, right? It is worth mentioning, though, that there are some people out there within our Congress and within our government that are doing a really good job of trying to do the right thing, right? Thomas Massey out of Kentucky, he is a really good dude, one of my favorite people. I've broke bread with him. I've interviewed him. He is such a humble guy, one of the most intelligent guys you could ever ask for. He is a gift to Kentucky. Thomas Massey is. Ted Cruz, great guy. I really, really like what Ted Cruz has done, and he just is completely unabashed and unadulterated in terms of how he approaches liberty and freedom and our rights and stuff. So let me pull up Ted on Instagram.
I see.
Here.
There's several joint resolutions that have been introduced by multiple members.
Ted Cruz introduces amendment imposing term limits on congressional members. Right
again.
Yes. Right. So that's newest in his timeline.
Good deal.
So it's right there. This was just published on the 26th of January.
Okay. Awesome.
Anyway, look it up. You'll get some information on it. But I just thought I would
we
mention
really
it.
do need new blood in the House and the Senate. I mean, the President of the United States has a 4-year term limit and then has to be elected again and can serve only a total of 8 years. Why can members of the House and members of the Senate serve their entire lives? I mean, there's no reason for someone to be stuck in that seat for that long. And the way that the districting works and like redistricting, okay, when the censuses are done, which we just had a census in 2020, so there's going to be a lot of redistricting and such, and most of these redistricting, or most of the redistricting that happens really plays into the hands of leftists, okay, like AOC up in New York. She's in Queens. There is very, a tiny, minuscule chance that she will ever be voted out of that seat, even by one of the most staunch conservative candidates that you might be able to fight for or fight against in Queens. But she just has that base up there. I mean, this is a district where, she's won by like 80% of the vote. Okay? So term limits would be appreciated because there's no sense in somebody being a career politician like that. You need to get new blood in there because times change. I mean, look at Feinstein. I keep coming back to her because there's so many like older members of Congress out there that are really just out of touch with reality these
What can
days.
an 87-year-old person possibly know about? I mean, you know what I mean? I'm not saying that folks that get older don't have infinite wisdom to share with the world. I'm not saying that. But it's like when it's in the realm of being a career politician, that's not a good thing, right? That's not something you look back on and go, well, Biden was a career politician for 48 years up till now. It's like, that's not a good thing, right? That's voting in the snake in the grass. Like, that's a person who has become a master of manipulating the world around him and the environment around him in order to make his family wealthy and influential. And it's all about power and keeping that power and consolidating that power within circles of the government. And that's the danger of this whole thing, right?
Yeah.
It is far long been away from the idea of protecting the rights of citizens and you having the power and you having a say as an individual. I mean, they say, oh, you can go vote. Well, vote your way out. Make your voice be heard. And you look at everything that's happened with all of that. So it's just, at what point is there any recourse for the average person who's been subject to this crap their whole lives, right? Biden's been a career politician longer than I've been alive. And it's just crazy to think. I mean, it's just...
I'm telling
we
you.
should not support an environment where people are able to become career politicians. Our founding fathers never wanted there to be career politicians.
Bottom line.
And they never wanted there to be this huge tipping of power in the government to one side or the other, right?
Yeah.
They always wanted checks and balances so that no one side of the political argument could have overall control of the situation. And what Schumer is doing with this filibuster is not in the spirit of the founding fathers' original intentions. Certainly not.
Well, not a whole lot.
It's an opportunity to consolidate power, and they're taking it.
It is not a whole lot of the Constitution really gets brought up in conversation in the houses of Congress and the Senate today. I don't think, but I think that term limits too. As Eric mentioned, I think term limits would force voters to maybe research their candidates maybe a little bit more instead of just voting because they've got an R or a D beside their name. And it happens on both sides of the aisle. You got an R beside your name in a red state, then you're probably going to stay there for a while. But when did it become a point in case that you vote because of someone's political affiliation and not their character or their virtue or what they've actually done in their record? I mean, we look at Joe Manchin and we look at his voting record against gun legislation that comes down the pipeline. He's been against a lot of anti-gun bills that have come down, in his tenure. But who's to say that he would follow that suit again? But he has come up and said that if anything comes down the pipe from Schumer or anybody else about packing the courts or getting rid of the filibuster, or whatever the case is, he's going to be up against it. So
and we can only hope that anything related to anti-gun legislation that he'll also not sign on.
We're definitely not out of the water, but I'd say that with a 50-50 split, okay, it's going to be very hard pressed for anti-gun legislation to get through the Senate, especially with folks like Manchin potentially on the side of gun owners, because you have to think a lot of the anti-gun legislation in the past few terms has failed. Okay, we look back at the Obama years, the big assault weapons ban. It didn't even really make it out of committee. Okay, but then some of the pro-gun stuff never made it out of the committee either.
How many Democrats are like Joe Manchin and that will not side with the gun control people? And how many Republicans who we think are on our side aren't going to sign on with gun control? Yep. So this isn't out of the water. This is just a talking point that I felt was worth bringing up in this gun gripe, because we are in for one crazy battle with the Second Amendment. And anytime there is, I hate to use the word regime change, but anytime there's a regime change, they say that. Of course, it's a regime to them. But anytime there's a change of ownership, whatever you want to call it, change in the management, anytime that there's a change, it always seems to spark these talks, especially when that change tips the balance of power in one direction extremely more than the other. Well, okay, one could argue during the Obama administration, not a single bit of gun control was passed, through the Congress or anything. But likewise, in the 2 years that we supposedly had control of everything on the right side of things, or whatever political end you want to look at it from, we didn't get any pro-gun stuff passed. So this whole government over the last 10 years, 12 years has been lame duck. Nothing has really gotten done except to further their own political goals and their own personal goals.
Don't forget that we got more gun control under Trump via executive action than we did during the entire 8 years of Obama.
We did get a 7.6 ban.
We did, but Trump banned bump stocks.
And that sets forth a very dangerous precedent.
And then we saw what happened with braces, with the ATF and whatnot, and then them backing off of that, and we still don't have any updates on that yet. Okay, we did a video about that topic as well. But we did, we saw, Trump talking about red flag laws and, take the guns first, due process later, and then talking about banning suppressors. I mean, so we got a sitting Republican, quote unquote, okay, in the White House who's supposed to be on gun owners' side, saying that he's going to do these things, and we're like, hey, what's the letter after your name again? I mean, what are you representing today? But I don't think it really matters, whether there's a D or an R after somebody's name. It's all about, like I said, their character and their virtue and what they actually do, not what they say they're going to do. I mean, Trump could promise that, the 8-year assault on your Second Amendment rights is coming to a screeching halt, or whatever verbatim. Was it really? Was it?
I mean, and that's the question. What will Joe Biden do with executive fiat to mirror what Trump did with executive fiat in regards to the Second Amendment. So,
Yep.
It's just a giant swamp. And, the fight isn't over, but we've got to definitely make sure that we are, ringing that bell as hard as we can from every single direction, and that we're, reaching out to these people and we're making sure that they know where we're coming from. I've got faith that things are going to be okay, but at the same time, it does make you wonder, what the future for the Second Amendment really holds. And that's all I'm going to say about that here.
Well, I just wonder, like, at what point in our lives are we going to, stop having these close calls, and there's going to be some massive gun control that comes down the pipeline, like we've seen in Canada and Great Britain and Australia. The only thing that's really stood in the way is our constitutional amendment. I mean, more or less.
And then another thing that sort of ticks me off a good bit is we're supposed to have this, conservative majority in the Supreme Court. Where are the 2A cases? Where are all these horrible grievances that we bring up to the Supreme Court, and all of the things that have been done against us, and our rights have been diminished over these years? Where are those cases being heard in the Supreme Court now that we're supposed to supposedly have this conservative majority, right? So if Biden and all his cronies want to, pack the Supreme Court and tip the balance in the Supreme Court by packing it, right? If they want to do that, then why don't we get in our butts in gear and get some things in the pipeline and get some of the stuff voted on the Supreme Court and get some of this crap thrown out or something.
See, the bad thing...
Throw us a bone here.
The bad thing is, cases have gone to the Supreme Court, and a lot of them they've refused to hear. So then it just gets passed back to the lower courts. That's not what all the talk was about. It's like, hey, we need to get, Kavanaugh in. We need to get Amy Coney Barrett in. Okay, now we've got this big conservative majority in the Supreme Court. Now we're going to get some things done on all fronts, not just on the gun front, but on, all the conservative fronts. Things with abortion, things with, civil rights, things with firearms. Okay, whatever you want to talk about.
Free
conservative
speech.
values. All right,
we'd love to see something. There's been a lot of free speech, stuff that it's. I'm not going to get into Section 230C and all of that stuff in this particular video, but
when they can say,
it's pretty scary with the censorship.
Yeah, when the Supreme Court can just say, oh, we're not going to hear that case, we're passing it back to the lower courts. But then it goes back to a court where they're either just not going to rule on it or they just dismiss it, and there it is. You start over from scratch, and this is like a 3-year process to get something to the Supreme Court. So, is the court really the supreme, end-all, do-all of the land?
Is the Constitution the law of the land? That's what you really have to ask yourself. Like, what mechanism, what document are we honoring in the way that we run our government if the Constitution is not the ultimate law of the land and the end-all, do-all instruction manual that the government has to follow? The Constitution is not necessarily, it is an affirmation of our rights, but it's also more distinctively an instruction manual of what the government cannot do. It is to limit the power of government more than it is to solidify what our rights are, which by virtue of living the words of not only the Second Amendment, but the Constitution in general and the Bill of Rights, you are telling the government, all right, that's far enough. Okay, you can't go any further. So what happens when they keep coming and coming and coming, and no one is going to solidify our rights, whether through the courts or by just honoring the Constitution as a politician? So, it's pretty crazy. Like, what standard is there if the Constitution is not the ultimate law of the land?
The standard that is put forth by your masters.
Yeah. Guys, don't fret. Don't get too worked up over this. It's just important to kind of keep this stuff in the back of your mind. And it's just a talking point we wanted to bring up. This is far from over. The Second Amendment is going to be under attack over the next 4 years. This is not over, and it's going to be scary. So be expecting some stuff from us in terms of gun gripes. We're always going to ring that bell whenever we can and get word out on pending legislation and things like that. Whatever we hear about, we'll definitely make videos on it. But don't let it. The most important thing. Don't let it define you. Live your life. Be happy. Prepare. Do the best you can. Be an engaged citizen, get other people into gun ownership, because ultimately the ambassadorship is what is going to protect us in the long run, right? The more people we turn into gun owners, the more people that we make understand that, the Second Amendment is an extremely important right to protect, then overall it's going to make it harder, no matter who the politician is or what lettered, is next to their name. It's going to make it much harder for people like them to infringe on your rights when we have a holistic approach to the Second Amendment and the importance of gun ownership. That is the battle we need to be fighting, bringing more people into the fold and really fighting this stuff in court and making it literally heck. Making it a living hell on them. That's how we're going to win. Guys, have a great day. We appreciate you watching Gun Gripes. We hope you enjoyed today's video. Definitely like to thank all of our Patreon supporters. Those of you who purchased snazzy t-shirts over on Ballistic Ink, thank you very much. Also, our man cans, we got some great products that we select just for you guys. Consider purchasing one. Help support our channel. Have a great day. Many more videos on the way. We'll see you next time.
Take care, guys.